soups.
That'd be part of my hometown, but that'll be my next choice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Yeah.
I would say good in summer and winters for sure.
That'd be awesome.
And all of these paths
always
are
looking
things that we
together.
need in this
Yeah.
world.
Whenever you go somewhere.
Well, then look up that Tersitanos too. I
Where's
think that's on.
Happy
So
birthday,
it's
Jack Arnold.
probably 509.
What's it
It's
called?
his birthday.
It's called Tersitanos.
Bye, Dan.
It's
A lot of great November birthdays, huh?
the William.
Coming up on Sunday.
You do? What is this for you?
50.
Is it really?
Yeah, old man.
So are you guys having a big shitting?
Well, Rena turns 50 in September. So
Okay.
we thought maybe we'd split the difference and go on a cruise or something.
Oh, nice. Nice. That'd be nice. You guys need to get away and do like a real vacation. Not the kids all are all on their own.
If it was your turn.
The world knows.
Yeah.
So the root beer made it in the top two. Top
No,
one.
best ever.
Best
Did
ever.
you see the video? Best ever.
I saw the video. I was laughing. Debbie goes, "What are you laughing at?" I go, "Well,
He found out that Jackson likes root beer a lot.
Ah.
He picked 2 of these root beers that he got from Buffalo Trace.
I don't know if I could get any more of that."
He's been, keeping them, and he bought a bunch, and he gave Jackson one of his last 2 to try. And so Jackson had it last night and said,
See,
it
we
was
were
the
coming
best
home
he'd
from
ever had.
Columbus, and Jody was catching it because the groceries weren't there, and she said he's got to have his nightly root beer. And so I said, "Okay."
So that Tersitanos.
So he shared one of his last 2 with Jack because of the love of root beer. So
But they're
It's important. It's important things in life.
it is.
I would have had Watts bring back a whole case if I'd have known.
Yeah.
smoke. They do
So,
smoke stuff.
Somebody's
So
got to
they
make
have
a
like
trip
smoke
down there. I don't
shop.
think you can get it. Huh?
Okay.
That was so
Otherwise-
funny because as soon as he saw that root beer, he's like, "Oh, you gotta mix it with the cream," and that was exactly what you
They
said.
smoke it.
Bourbon cream.
Must have made it the
So
same
if I
impression.
get,
But yeah, that other
Jared
one
and
is really
Jody
good,
the
though.
bourbon cream,
Check it out.
because they're not allowed to have that. And I'll get the kids a root beer. You can sneak some of the root beer.
There you go. I've
Make
actually
a root
never
beer
had bourbon.
float.
It smells yucky.
There's 2 little girls running around.
That's amazing.
She's
I'm
not,
live.
no, she's not a teacher.
Danny's not coming, right?
He's now
No,
she's
Dan.
He's in Florida.
That's
there.
what I
They
heard.
put up
Oh,
with
can you
Mickey.
imagine?
Oh, Danny's in
Jamie sent me a bunch of pictures.
But we're
They
we're
what?
putting them up.
Jamie sent
We're
me a
putting
bunch
them
of
on the
pictures today.
Auburn board tonight. So it's the best.
Oh, yeah, it's a good night.
Happy
for him to be
belated
gone.
there,
Oh,
my
is he
friend.
at Auburn's
Thanks.
board meeting
Lots.
now? Is he at Auburn's board meeting tonight?
No, I think he's
No,
in
he's
Florida.
in.
Oh, he's in
What
Florida.
did you do for your
Oh,
birthday?
yeah.
That's
Anything
right.
super?
That's the best way to nominate a guy. They're not here.
Yeah. What's he got to do?
He's gonna be another rep on the Auburn board.
I'm on everything.
Just make sure
What
he
else-
has a nice
what else do we
fire
have?
pack.
Serves him right. Not being here.
Does he, I'm assuming knows that. When he read the board minutes.
I'm
and his
assuming.
agenda.
Otherwise, surprise.
What do we got? Football, volleyball, soccer.
Soccer. I saw a lot of soccer girls out there.
Nice.
What are they gonna come in here, kick a ball or what?
Kick it ass.
You got your speech? That's the best place for it, I guess.
Oh, there we go.
Wow, the whole soccer team.
I heard Jason Brandt was doing all the talking.
And he brought a PowerPoint, I heard. No? False advertising?
Hey, you had a good teacher your freshman year, so
Use your mics.
he would have been prepared.
We have.
Okay, thank you.
Right, a little bit.
Did we do better last time or was it still bad?
No, it was fun.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we-
It's a good thing you did.
I don't
Great.
know that they,
Good for me to say
they're
something.
gonna do a presentation.
Oh,
I don't know.
Well, he,
She didn't want to discuss certain things, so
That's fine.
we'll do it with Danny.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
Did you have good birthday?
Huh? Sure. I just enjoyed. I went to lunch and I drank at lunch. That is like just like a big deal,
It's
right?
your
You
birthday.
drank like a alcoholic beverage?
2 of them. Actually, 4. Get crazy. I know. I never do that. Wow. Never ever. Wowzers. Like to bring the meeting to order if everybody could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Beth, roll call, please.
Mr. Berman is going to be absent tonight. Mr. Manfredi,
Here.
Mrs. Miller,
Here.
Mrs. Stone,
Here.
and Mr. Wadsworth.
Here.
I need a first and a second for approval of the agenda. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Sir?
Linda, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone.
Yes.
I need a first and a second for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Linda,
Me.
I'll
was
second.
it you? It sounded like Linda. I wasn't looking. All right, Jody. And,
I'll second. Yep.
all right, Brian. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Manfredi,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth.
Yes.
John, student staff presentation.
All right, I am going to introduce Mr. Brian Hiscox, who is going to tell us about our student presentation from Berkshire Athletics tonight.
Look at this cheery smile amongst the game.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us a couple minutes of your time this evening. With us tonight, we have 3 teams who accomplished some major goals that they set out for themselves in the fall. And I'm going to have some of our captains and leaders speak on those teams' behalves of the seasons that they had. So with us tonight, we have some members of our volleyball team. They were the 2024 CVC champs. The first time they've been back-to-back CVC champs since that happened was 2015 and 2016. It's the program's 22nd conference championship since 1975 and their 14th since the turn of the century in the year 2000. We have some members of our football team here who had a very, very good regular season and won their first playoff game in school history with a 24-16 win over Sugar and Falls. And last but not least, we have our girls soccer team, who was also 2024 CVC champs. They are the back-to-back CVC champs. It's their 5th conference title in program history. They won their 3rd district championship in program history, and they made their first appearance in the regional final, which is the equivalent of the OHSAA Elite 8. So with that, I'm going to invite our leaders from the volleyball team up to kind of tell you about their season.
I'm Kate Miller. I'm a junior.
I'm Marissa Risch. I'm a junior. I'm Jillian Smetana, and I'm a junior.
Okay, so basically this year we won the CVC, which was awesome because last year we tied for first with Kirtland. We had a 19-5 record, and we only lost 1 home game, which was the last one, but that's okay. Marissa reached her 1,000th career assist this year, which is exciting and very good. It was a really good season. We had a lot of fun. Okay, I guess that's all we have to say.
That's all she has to say about that.
All right, now I'd like to invite up Jason Brent and our football players.
I'm Jason Brent. I'm a senior. I'm Caleb Corbett, and I'm a senior.
They can raise it up or pull it up. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Justin Phillips. and I'm a senior.
Paul Brent, I'm a senior.
I'm Abram Southern. I'm also a senior. I'm Roman Persig. I'm a junior.
So this season we had a 7-3 record, which was tied with our sophomore year as seniors, which is what we were going for. And unfortunately, we didn't win the conference, but we did win the first playoff game in school history, and that's what our plan was from the start coming into this season. And I think our program is at an upward trend of getting better and better every year. I'm excited to see what the class can do next year, and yeah.
We had some athletes this year. I'm very proud of the guys I played next to. Very sad they're moving on from this program, and it's been a pleasure.
And now I'd like to introduce our captains for the girls soccer team. We got Peyton Larch, Mary Lee, and Kelly McCandless, and the rest of our girls soccer players and coaches.
Hi, I'm Kelly McCandless. I'm a junior.
I'm Mary Lee. I'm a senior.
I'm Peyton Larch, and I'm a senior.
This year was a really good year for us. We were CBC champs for the 4th year in a row. We reached regional finals and won regional semifinals for the first year. We had a lot of girls recognized for awards as well.
So Kelly reached a new record of goals in a game and goals in a season, which was 36 goals. Liv Masink, who's our goalie, had a new record of saves in a season, which was 151.
That's it.
Overall, our fall sports teams at the middle school level had a really successful season. Definitely a lot of things to build on too with some of the younger kids coming up. So we're very excited about the future of our programs, but definitely highlight these 3 teams for their accomplishments this fall. So thank you for your time.
Congratulations, all of you. Oh.
From a spectator standpoint, it was a really, really fun fall watching all of you guys. So thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome to stay. Nobody's forcing you to leave. So if you want to, but if you'd like to go, that's up to you as well. We wouldn't hold it against anyone. See ya.
Cafeteria is fine.
Yeah, it's a learning experience.
You're in for it.
Okay, we're at the point of the meeting for public participation. You want to come up to the microphone because we tape record these sessions so that you could be heard on those sessions. And we ask you to address myself and the board and to please be respectful. So if there's anyone that wants to comment, please do so.
It looks so sad in here now without everybody.
Yeah. We know how to clean out the house, huh? Okay. Thank you, then. We'll go to the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Let the record reflect the treasurer has submitted a statement to the board and to the superintendent showing the revenues, the receipts and sources derived, the various appropriations made by the board, the expenditures and disbursements, the purposes and the balances remaining in each fund. The financial statements for the period ending October 2024 has been submitted subject to audit and includes the financial summary, appropriation and revenue summary, check register recap, and bank reconciliation. Can I have a motion to approve the following donations? We had a $50 donation from the Berkshire PTO for the student lunch fund.
So moved. I'm sorry. So moved.
I'll second it, Linda.
Linda, okay. Question, Beth, and maybe not a question, but a comment. If we have students that are struggling to make their payments through the fund, can you tell us, not right now, but in an email, let us know what that deficit is?
Okay.
Thank you.
We do have an account that Beth and the admin team put money on, and we tell the cafeteria staff that if anyone's low, they use that account. And then we also have, just about every year, an angel donor will contact us and ask how much in lunch charges, and they'll pay them off. So we've never ended the year with a lunch debt.
Right.
Okay.
The kids are aware though. They can.
What's
charge-
that?
The kids are aware they can eat without having enough funds, right? That they could charge this.
Yeah, we've asked them not to turn anyone away. So anyone who comes through, if they don't have enough on their account, they just give it to them and charge it to our account. Then they let us know. If they feel like it's being abused, then we have conversations. But we tell them not to refuse anyone.
Remind me the name of, I know it, but I can't think of it right now. The who's in charge of our cafeteria?
Julie Saulers.
Julie, that's right. And she's very receptive when people have questions.
Yep.
And so I would encourage anybody that ever has questions about that to reach out to her, and she'll give them an answer one way or the other.
Any further discussion? Beth, roll call, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
and Mr. Manfredi.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the following financial amendments? We're de-appropriating in the general fund because some carryovers were included that are automatically deemed appropriated, so I didn't need to appropriate them. The FAFSA grant was moved from miscellaneous grants into the 018 fund. And then Ashley Brzezowski got the Skills Trainer Project grant again this year for $7,934.
So moved.
Brian,
I'll second.
Jody, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to increase the Infinite Campus online payment processing fee to 3.5% for credit cards plus an additional 35 cents per transaction?
So moved.
A second.
Brian, any discussion?
So is that the fees that's attached to anything that they use the credit cards for on Infinite
Yeah,
Campus?
so
Okay.
we have not been passing those fees on, and we can't afford it anymore.
Any further discussion? Okay, Beth, roll call, please.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Before we introduce the motion for the 5-year forecast, I'm going to do a quick presentation and just go through. Okay. So before we get to the numbers, it's important to remember that the forecast is an estimate. It's what we know as of today. The financial forecast only tells a small bit of the story, so it's very important to refer to the notes and the assumptions. Ohio school finance is constantly changing due to inflation, the state funding formula, and tax collections. And just keep in mind that the 5-year forecast represents only the general fund. So the purposes and objectives of the forecast is to engage the Board of Education and the community in long-range planning and to discuss the financial issues facing the district, to serve as a basis for me to sign the 412 certificate, and that's basically to certify contracts, and to provide a method for the Ohio Department of Education and the Auditor State's Office to identify school districts with financial issues or problems. So John and I always look back to see how we did with each forecast. So this slide represents what we estimated in the May forecast and where we ended up on June 30th of 2024. So we started with $4.4 million. We collected a total of 21.2 million, so that was up a little bit than what we predicted in May. And we'll go over the reasons why in later slides. Our expenditures were down a little bit, so we predicted 21.8 and we came in at 21.6. So that caused our deficit to be lower and our ending cash balance to be higher. But then we had carryovers. So the carryovers are payments that we expected to pay that didn't get paid by year end, or some payments from that we may have accelerated into a PO for fiscal year 24. So an example of that is we were predicted to buy 2 vans in 25. We accelerated that into fiscal year 24, but the money wasn't actually spent. So we ended up with about $87,000 less in cash than we forecasted, which is pretty good. So if we dig into the revenues, you can see in 24, we ended up with an additional $152,000. That was due to slight increases in real estate taxes. So the county auditor only certifies 98% of the available taxes. So we collected a little bit more than that. And then it's important to keep in mind of those real estate taxes, there's $1.2 million of delinquencies that are not included in our forecast that just sit out there until, and we don't certify them until we collect on them.
Can you, am I interrupting you if I ask a question?
No.
Can you talk on that for one said that
So
gas line?
I'm going to talk more about it in
Sure.
in future slides if
Sounds
you
good.
can be patient. Yeah.
I will be-
So State Foundation, that is House Bill 33, which is the Cup-Patterson Fair School funding. It's deceiving. Fair school funding, additional enrollment does not translate into increased state funding, and that's basically because we're on the guarantee. And then also it's important to keep in mind that formula is based on the state biennium. So we don't know what the funding is for fiscal year 26 through 29. So we've basically flatlined that formula. We did see growth. I was able to put in 1% growth to our income tax. So fiscal year 25, that's going to be about $146,000. And then we're seeing growth to outside tuitions, and that's primarily preschool and special ed tuitions. So this graph depicts our total operating revenue of $22.1 million. So you can see 68% of that comes from real estate and income tax. So those are all local sources. And 32% come from state sources. Something I think it's really important to remember in our district is 13% of our property in our district is exempt from taxation. So just to give you an example of some of the big ones, Akron, there's 5,000 acres that are exempt in our district with an assessed value of $8 million. So that's money we will never have any taxes come in from. And then, of course, the Park District has 2,300 acres with an assessed value of about $3 million. So, Mr. Wadsworth, this is going to talk about that delinquency. So public utilities only account for 4% of our revenue, but it's accounting for 80% of our delinquent taxes. So currently, the Orwell-Trumbull pipeline has $942,000 that has been unpaid. So if you look, you see we steadily grow. So fiscal year 18, we had almost $600,000, and you can see 19 we're growing, and 20 we're growing, and then all of a sudden in 21 we drop off. That is because the Orwell-Trumbull pipeline filed for bankruptcy, and all the treasurers in Jaga County are trying to kind of dig into this and figure out why this happened. But they sold their assets separately from the liabilities. And so that liability is still on the books as a certified delinquent. But we're not seeing any movement as far as the payment. And then that dip that you see in 23, that's because there was a payment that was made late that wasn't paid till 24. So this was a big hit to us. Almost $1 million that we had to recoup. So that's one of the struggles of forecasting. And so when people say you had this big windfall, well, what about this outgoing thing that we have to respond to? So if we dig into expenditures, you can see last year, as I said, we spent about $177,000 less, but like I said, those carryovers from 24 are going to be expensed into 25. Fiscal year 25 through 28, the differences between May and now is we did hire 2 new administrative positions, 7 new teaching positions, and 13 additional aides for high-need students. And then we had changes to the negotiated agreement. Please keep in mind that the teachers and the aides associated with preschool is going to be offset by purchase services because we no longer have to send those children out. And then, as you all know, the permanent improvement levy failed. So I had to redirect transfers from the general fund into the 070 fund to pay for capital projects. So the next slide depicts how our expenditures, so of $21.8 million, we had 52% going towards salaries, which is understandable because we're in the people business, right? Purchase services, 23%, benefits 17%, and other is 8%.
Can you give some examples of purchase services?
Sure. Purchase services would be anything that we have to buy. So if a child has to go to, for instance, if he ends up in probate court or juvenile probate court and the judge says you need to go to Boys Town, that Boys Town expense comes back to us. We might have to, Mr. Stoddard, what's some other?
Sure. If we have to place a student at Metzenbaum, or if we have to
Metzenbaum.
outplace a student for any type of special needs, typically our contracts with the educational service centers, those type of things are all in purchase services. Any time that we are purchasing some type of a service that we're using for instruction or administrative reasons, that's not coming out of from the staff that we hire.
So the next slide shows our revenues, expenditures, and cash balances. So you can see the expenditures are outpacing our revenues. Fiscal year 25, we're getting low on cash. 26 is getting a little scary. 27, we have some problems. And if you translate this graph into days of cash, you can see we ended 24 with 59 days of cash. This year, we're going to end up with 50, and 26 will have 34 days of cash.
How many days are we required to have of cash?
So you're not necessarily required. We don't have a cash policy in place, where there's a minimum cash that we have to maintain. I will tell you that the Government Finance Officers Association recommends 60 days cash.
And obviously, those charts looked a lot different before the renewal failed for the second
Yes,
time.
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's $480,000 that had to start hitting the general fund in fiscal year 26. And so, yeah, we're going to have to really dig in and figure out how we're going to offset that. So some of the threats to the forecast right now, Senate Bill 271, that's, I think it's gone through committee in the Senate. It's a property tax reform where it gives relief to taxpayers whose taxes exceed 5% of their income. I don't know how much leg that has. I don't know how they determine if how they're going to equate that at all. I don't get it. The state budget, we don't know what our funding is going to be for 26, 27, and 28 and 29 because it relies on the state biennium. Unfunded mandates, examples of that would be we're required to pay transportation to parochial schools, all the standardized testing that we do, and then, of course, the economy. We all feel the hurt when we go to the grocery store right now. It's the same thing for the school. And then what now, Dr. Stoddard?
So we have limited options on what we can do to increase revenue as a school district. And unfortunately, those options are tax levies. So we'll have to look at things like whether we want to pursue another levy in the term of an emergency levy or a traditional permanent improvement levy or an income tax. Beth and I are always working on ways we can cut expenditures. Things like while it might not seem like putting a new building in the back to be able to house preschool is a money saving. It actually saves us because it will cost us more to outsource, to send those kids away than it will to run our own program. So some of those things are cost saving measures. We always look at our budgets and have our building principals look at their budgets and find ways that we can cut back on spending there. We're looking at grants and different types of funding opportunities. I know that we did show that we hired 2 new administrators last year. One of those administrators has already brought in 3 times the amount of her salary in grants to the district, which is going to be a big asset for us. And the other has brought in the lion's share of that $180,000 in outside tuitions that we're seeing. So when we add positions, we're adding positions that add value and that help to bring in revenues. I have a meeting later this week with Google to look at a potential after-school Google certification courses that we could do a tuition base for after school to try to help bring in some additional revenues to the school. We're looking at different ways, different things we can do. Unfortunately, there aren't many ways to bring in revenue when you're a public school, and so the biggest way to bring in revenue is a tax levy. Those aren't popular, and then the biggest way to cut expenses. Obviously, we're in the people business. People make up 52% of our budget in salaries, and then 17% of our budget in benefits. But there's pain in cutting people because any cut to people is a cut. It affects class sizes, it affects instruction. I think we've shown that our model is successful because not only are we adding the workforce development programs that are going to help our kids be successful in the future, but we're also showing improvement every year on the state report card. So we've found a model that works. And now it's the difficulty of trying to fund that model that works. So those are different ways that we meet daily to try to come up with new and different ideas. And if anyone else has any other ideas, we're open to that. We probably will want to look at doing a public work session, probably sometime early January, where we can kind of get some ideas out on the table and talk about whether we want to pursue potentially another attempt at a levy in May, or what other options we may want to take. Other questions?
So can I have a motion to approve the 5-year forecasts to be submitted to the Ohio Department of Education?
So moved.
Brian, I'll second. Any further discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
And there's why we do what we do.
Oh, whose grandkids that? All right, John, we have the superintendent's report.
All right, I would like to request a motion to approve the following personnel items certified and classified as listed.
So moved. I'll second it.
Jody and Linda. Any discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
I would like to request a motion to approve the following volunteers as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Brian. Any discussion?
These are some rock star people that volunteer for us that make big impacts on our kids. So
We are
Just-
very fortunate to have the volunteers that we have.
absolutely.
Very excellent. Roll call, Beth.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
I would like to request a motion to approve the following overnight student trips. One has already happened. We took some middle school students to the state cross country championship. Unfortunately, that happened after our October meeting, but before this meeting. So it's kind of, we're approving it after the fact. And also our wrestling team will be going to Defiance on December 27th. So those two trips, I'd like to request a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Linda.
Second.
Brian.
They did very well, by the way. Thank you for
Junior high
allowing it.
kids, yeah.
Exciting stuff. That's our future.
Yep.
That's our future. Any further discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
I would like to request a motion to approve the following contracts as attached.
So moved.
Second.
Brian. Any discussion?
Can you just, Dr. Stoddard, explain what Credo is and how they help us?
Sure. The Credo Company are professional lobbyists who work for us in Columbus to try to get additional funding. They are the group that helped us get the $915,000 grant from the state to renovate the Department of Transportation facility that we will use for our workforce development programs and our transportation building in the future. And the other contract is ETLA. It's the Ed Tech Leadership Association. There's a new Senate Bill 29 that requires us to track every app, every program that we use to make sure that it's compliant in terms of not selling our students or families' information to third parties. And we have over 600 educational apps that we use, so we have to have someone to help us manage all of those different contracts.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to request a motion to pass the Ed Choice Voucher Resolution as attached. The short form of this is I'm officially requesting that Berkshire join the other districts in the state of Ohio that that add to the Ed Choice Voucher lawsuit against the state to try to stop the state from these unlimited vouchers that are hurting public education.
So moved.
Second it.
Brian, Linda. John, do you have any idea how many schools have joined that suit?
I don't know the exact number, but I think it's more than 2/3 of the schools in Ohio have joined the suit. And most of the schools who haven't joined to this point are similar to Berkshire, small rural schools that really weren't seeing the effects of it until recently. I think we went from less than 10 vouchers accepted to more than 60 over the course of 1 year. And statewide, we're seeing that more than 80% of all vouchers accepted are being accepted by people who never even set foot in a public school or never intended to go to a public school. So our tax dollars are starting to subsidize private education, which I don't think was ever the intent of that. And we feel that we need to now kind of stand with the other school districts and try to put a stop to this.
So this money that then is coming out of the general fund that goes for the public schools, and it's lots of money this year. I forget, I read.
More than
$1
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, technically, they don't take it out of the line item for public education, but it was removed. So they just don't put it into that line item anymore. They separate it so that it doesn't look like, but that money is coming from what would have gone to public education. And there's no financial, we love competition. I want to compete with every school district there is. The problem is what's happening now is it's like we're playing a football game and the private schools are playing on a 50-yard field and we're playing on a 100-yard field, and then the state wants to compare our scores at the end of the game. And that's just, if we're playing on a level playing field, we're all for it. But I'm not even talking about state testing. There are no financial requirements there's no financial accounting for the money when it gets transferred to private schools, whereas we're financially accountable for every penny that we spend. And there's just not that same level. And then those schools can accept who they want, when they want, how they want. And I think we all know that they don't accept anyone that has any type of struggle or challenge, which leaves, they're targeting our best and brightest to try to pull them away from us.
Okay. Any further discussion? Beth, roll call, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi.
Yes. Okay, thank you, John. Old business. The only thing I have with old business, you brought it up, was the building, which was the state building. Where do we stand with possession or?
So we just received the phase 1 environmental impact. We're getting prices on a phase 2. We are in the process of negotiating a lease. And so we'll have to execute the purchase agreement then with the state of Ohio, which our attorney is now reviewing.
Were they satisfied with the appraisal that we had?
Yes. So ODOT did accept that.
Okay, so that was a big concern, I know.
Yeah, we have a purchase agreement. That purchase agreement is as is. So our attorney felt like it would be appropriate for us to do a title search, a phase 1. Then the phase 1 recommended, although there was low risk, it recommended a phase 2 just to get a deeper look. So and then of course there's some language in the state contract that they want to try to get changed. But in terms of it's how fast we can get the phase 2 complete, and then what we accept on the purchase agreement, and then that will be turned over to us as soon as that happens. We have a meeting with some representatives from Preston tomorrow to go over some details on what the lease would look like when they're involved with us, and then we'll start moving at light speed.
And I know we know this. I don't know that everybody does because Linda wasn't there. The delivery of the modulars.
Yeah, we'll get our first delivery tomorrow. So half of the units, there are 4 different units that will connect to make 8 classrooms. Half of those will be here tomorrow, and the other half will be here Thursday. They're supposed to be rough set Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then all the connections, water, sewer, whatnot, they'll start, and all the electric and internet, things like that. Supposedly 2 to 3 weeks for those connections, and then we can start moving in furniture.
Okay, and the goal would be January will be in operation.
The goal is when
after.
we come back from Christmas break, we're running classes in there. That's the goal.
Okay. Anything else with old business?
No, sir.
New business.
We do have an Auburn Career Center 1-year board appointment to do. So
Stick it to him while he's not here.
So Dan Berman is not here tonight, and it's a perfect opportunity for
He's
us
doing
to put him on the Auburn Career Board because he has no choice if he's not here to veto it. Actually, he has requested that he would take the appointment. So I'm going to make the motion, and I need a second.
I'll second.
Jody. Any further discussion?
just so you know, the reason Roger Miller represents the district on the Auburn Career Board, but because Newberry dissolved into West G and West G does not feed into Auburn, there's an open spot that rotates. And next year will be Berkshire's year to have 2 representatives. After that year, it'll rotate back to the other districts. And then I think there are 12 districts that Auburn serves. So every 12 years, we'll get a second board member on the Auburn board.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Our next board meeting will be here, 6 p.m., December 9th. Do we have a need for executive session?
I have no need.
You do not?
No.
Do not, John?
Nope.
Okay. With that being said, I need a first and a second for adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Oh, you son of a- so second.
Gotta keep you on
So
your toes.
fast.
Brian.
Mr.
Ryan,
Wadsworth?
second.
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
And Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming and enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Nice, John.